Everything you're about to hear from this point forward is a completely true story. And I know that because I was there. And that's a fact. One day, there was a man, right? There was a man outside a building. And this building had a big old garden in it. So I walk inside, and I talk to the guy at the front counter. The guy at the front counter says, "Who are you?" And I say, "You first." And he says, "I asked first." And I didn't want to engage in a stupid conversation like that, so I left the premises. I then went out to continue my walk. It was a lovely walk from there on out. I didn't have any more stupid conversations with Asian people. Then I saw this homeless guy. This homeless guy had a lovely little dog. It was sort of like a Labrador, but a lot smaller. I don't know what breed that is. It's probably a Labrador, but small. If I was a dog, that's what I'd call my breed. One time, my uncle tried to breed with a dog, and the results weren't great. Let's just say that. We had a pet dog, but he only survived a few minutes outside of my uncle's womb. So we had to get rid of him, unfortunately. I'd given him a name and everything. Some were convinced he wasn't the father, the dog, but he looked a lot like a dog to me. So that just might be a mistake on my part. You guys let me know if there's any details I've missed out in my uncle giving birth to a dog. So, during that walk, when I saw that homeless man with a dog, I was like, I may as well spot this bloke $1. Alright? So I had that $1 for that garden I was going to go to before that Asian man decided to engage in that terrible conversation with me. Alright? I wasn't quite fond of that Asian man, and I'm not a racist guy anymore, you know? So, I think it was just a matter of respect, and I just think I should be given more respect when I walk into an ancient garden. Like, is it ridiculous to say that? Let me know in the comments, lads. So when I gave that homeless man $1, he was like, "Where did you get this $1?" And I said, "My wallet." He said, "Can I see your wallet?" And I said, "No." And he went, "Ah, yeah, fair enough." And I was like, I'm a bit too smart to fall for that trick. That's the oldest trick in the book. And he goes, "Oh, you're probably right." This reminds me of the time I was listening to Rickets by Deftones, and the lead singer said, "You're probably right." I don't get the hype on the lead singer of Deftones. Maybe back in the 90s, when he wasn't fat, but now looking at him, it's a bit scary, in all honesty. Because how do you go from that to a disgusting little gremlin? And that's no offense. The new album was fine. I just think we should have some, like, extermination for fat people. Is that ridiculous to say? Let me know in the comments if you'd exterminate fat people. One day, after I didn't give that homeless man my wallet, I saw him again. And I was like, "Ah, it's you again." And it was. So I told the legend, "Yep, it's me again." And he goes, "I don't know you." So I go, "Oh yeah, fair enough." So the next time I see him, I'll be sure to send him my regards. That's all beside the point, because we're not even up to the real story yet. Because as I'm walking home, I notice, hang on a minute, That homeless guy didn't even have his dog. So I try and find the guy again, like where he was. It turns out he's moved. So I was like, where could he have moved to? He's homeless. Alright? If I was homeless, here's what I'd do. I'd live under a bridge, and I'd pretend to be an ogre. So then when people come under the bridge, they'd say, oh, don't go under that bridge. There's an ogre in there. And I could be like a legend for the townspeople. An ogre bridge. Why do they call it ogre bridge? A kid says. And then their mum would be like, oh, there is an ogre in that bridge. And they go, you're joking. And they'd be like, yeah, it's just a homeless guy. I'm not very smart with my disguises. I'm not sure how I'd afford a really good ogre disguise if I was homeless. I think it'd be a bit difficult. I'd have to beg a few times a day. And I wouldn't have a sympathy dog either. So I'd have to get one of those. Sympathy dogs are a bit strange, because once you have a sympathy dog, you can't get rid of him. Like if he bites you, that's your sympathy dog. You can't put him down. Imagine getting rabies from your sympathy dog. I'd be a bit scared if that happened today. I'd be like, that completely ruined my day. If I got rabies from my sympathy dog, I'd be like, wow, my day's ruined. Because it's like, that's your sympathy dog, man. That's so you don't get rabies. Because sympathy dogs are like supposed to protect you from rabies and whatnot. But I'm not sure anymore. Because I'm not actually sure what they're for except garnering sympathy. One time, when I was out frolicking in that garden, I saw that homeless man again. It was like the third time I've seen him in my life. And I was like, oh, it's been so long. And I was like, yeah, it's been a few days. Yeah, this only took place a few days after I saw him last. So it wasn't actually that long. But it was long in my mind. Because, all in all, time is essentially a theory when you think about it. It's sort of like, I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called the Balimba paradigm. And it sort of relates to what we're talking about now. There used to be an old washed up place called Balimba. And they were like, all the people in the neighborhood, they talk about, oh, Balimba paradigm this, Balimba paradigm that. But they're all so busy talking about the Balimba paradigm that no one got any jobs. And if you're pretty smart, you probably know that jobs are important to the government and the safety of the government. So they're a bit stressed by this. They were like, everyone's so worried about the Balimba paradigm and no one's getting jobs. So they said, hey, you guys need to get some jobs. And they all got jobs. True story. But I still hadn't found that guy's dog. I found the guy, not his dog though. So I was like, what happened to that dog? And he said, yeah. So I think he's doing alright. But I wasn't really convinced. Because I wasn't actually sure what yeah meant. I heard of people that eat their dogs. So I went back to the garden to ask that Asian man for help. Because I think he'd know a little bit more about eating dogs than I do. But unfortunately, he didn't know what to say. And he just kicked me off the premises and called the police. I was a bit miffed by this encounter. Truly miffed. And I wasn't sure what to say to him anymore. Because I need to find this dog. Because years back, that dog owed me $20. Because I said, alright, you can have this dog food, Mr. Dog. But you're gonna owe me $20. And he was like, ruff, ruff. ruff, 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 ruff. And I think that means yes in dog language. Was I wrong to assume that? Let me know in the comments below. So, if I ever wanted my $20 for that dog food, I'd have to find that dog. So I find that homeless man again and I tell him, "You didn't eat your dog, did you? Because he owed me $20. And he was like, "I don't have $20. And I said, "Your dog better." So he was a bit worried by that statement initially. But once I told him that it was only his dog that would have to pay me, and I wouldn't accept any payment from him for his dog's debt, he was a bit less worried. But I did say, if I find that dog and it doesn't give me my $20, I'll eat it and I'll mail its head to the Prime Minister. He was a bit worried by that statement, but he said he didn't know where his dog was. So I had to go on a bit of an adventure myself to find that mongrel. So I asked the guy, "Where was the last place you saw your dog?" And he says, "Oh, I don't remember." So I say, "Oh, what about now?" And he says, "Haven't a clue." So I go, "Oh, what about now?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's just up the street from here." I say, "Appreciate it, bro." So I walk up the street, but the dog isn't there. So I go back to that lying homeless bum, and I beat him. I beat him to death with a metal club I found on the ground. He's a bit worried by that, and so are the people around me, but I say it's okay, so no one's worried. After that predicament happened, I still wanted my $20 back, so I had to find this bum's dog one way or another. So that's when I came across a whole family of dogs. A whole dog family. And I was like, "Do you guys know any dogs that owe someone $20? And they all went, "Ruff, ruff, ruff." Which, if you remember from before, I know means yes in dog language. So I say, "Where is he?" And they go, "Ruff, ruff, ruff, ruff." And if you guys remember from before, that means yes in dog language. So I'm like, "Hey, this doesn't make much sense. Do you know where he is or not?" And they go, "Ruff, ruff, 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 ruff." Which is, if you guys remember from before, means yes in dog language. So I'm like, "Alright, where is he?" And they go, "Oh yeah, he's just down from there." And they point down the alleyway, and I say, "How hard was that?" True story, by the way. I'm still in contact with one of those dogs. His name's Frederick. He's a great guy, but unfortunately, he's recently divorced, so he's a bit depressed at the moment. That's alright, does I not mind. So anyway, I find that dog, and I say, "Where's my $20? And he's not saying anything. He's going, "Ruff, ruff, 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 ruff." That's no word I've ever heard of before. So I ask him again, because I say, "I'm going to need that 20, man." And he goes, "Ruff, ruff, ruff." And all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, can this guy even understand me? Because he doesn't seem to. It's like, I tell him, "Hey, you're acting like you can't even understand what I'm saying." And he goes, "Ruff, ruff, 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 ruff." Which, if you guys remember from before, means yes in dog language. So I'm a bit confused at this point, because I don't know if he understands me or not. So I ask him, "Wink 4 times in a row if you understand me." But he's like, "I don't know how to do that." So I get a bit worried, because how on earth am I supposed to get my 20 back if this dog can't even communicate properly with me? That's a bit of a worry, because it reminds me of the time back in the day in the corn maze, the Great Windsor Corn Maze. There was this farmer, right? And this farmer, he says, hey, it's a 50-cent admission to the corn maze. Now, this wasn't a very good corn maze. It was just a bunch of corn. It was barely a maze. I could see the end. And I was like, this is the worst corn maze I've ever seen in my life. And he tells me, yeah, you're probably right. Which reminded me of the time where the lead singer of Deftones said, you're probably right in Ricketts. I already talked about that. I just think you guys should know. So, I enter into that corn maze, and all of a sudden, that end disappears. I'm like, where's the end? He says, oh, it's a corn maze, you gotta find it. And he was like, I could see it before. And he was like, that wasn't the corn maze, that was the cornfields. So, it was actually a good corn maze, because I didn't know where the end was. True story. So, as I'm in that corn maze, I'm looking around, I'm like, where's the end of this corn maze? He's like, oh, I can't tell you, that'd ruin the fun of the corn maze. And I say, please tell me, this is the worst corn maze ever. And he's like, nope, not gonna tell you. And I say, please get me out of here. And he says, I'm gonna take you back into my little barn, tie you up and do things to you. That sounds better than being stuck in the corn maze. So I follow him. In his barn. Alright, and just like he says, he ties me up. He starts doing things to me. These things are a bit scary at first. But once you get to know the guy, you get used to him. But I was in there for a few years. So I wasn't sure what to do at that point. Because I actually wanted to get back to the corn maze because I felt like a bit of a weirdo for not finishing that corn maze and chickening out and letting a farmer do things to me in his barn instead of finishing that corn maze. So I ask him, can I finish the corn maze? He says, no, I own you. And I say, no you don't. And he says, yes I do. And I say, no you don't. And he says, yes I do. So I go, oh yeah, true. So he owns me at this point, right? And I'm not sure what to do. I'm a bit scared, right? Because, like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? There's a guy that owns me. And I say, wait, to own me you have to sign a piece of paper, right? And he says, no. And I go, oh yeah. So, I'm probably out of options. And I'm a bit worried, because I need to get that corn maze done. Right? So, as I'm trying to finish up this corn maze in my head, so I can go home and do the corn maze, I say, oh, Mr. Farmer, please let me do the corn maze. And he says, nope. And I say, oh, please let me do the corn maze. And he's like, fine, but let me do things to you. So he does his thing, and he does some things to me, and I'm finally able to do the corn maze. But I get a bit lost again, so I just end up coming back into the barn and just letting him do some more things to me. It's a bit scary at first, but you get used to the guy. Anyway, after about 15 years of this corn maze, I've finally gone, oh, I've had enough. And I asked to leave, and he goes, oh yeah, alright. So yeah, that's how I made my way home from that guy. So yeah, back to the dog. I finally see that dog, and I'm like, hey, you owe me $20. And he's like, woof, woof, woof. Which, if you guys remember from before, means a yes in dog. So I'm like, okay, can I have $20? And he goes, rawr. And I don't know what that means, so I'm a bit scared. And then I just feel like, oh, it's all gonna be alright. Can I just have my $20? And there he goes, he coughs up my $20, and I say, thank you very much, sir. He says, no worries, bud. I go, thanks, man. You're a real one, and I appreciate you. And he goes, "Ruff, ruff, ruff," in dog language. This means yes, if you guys remember from before. So I got my $20 back. I say, "Do you want to go back to your owner?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Why?" He does things to me. And I said, "Oh, there was a farmer once when I went to the corn maze. He did things to me." And I was like, "Wait, that homeless man, that's your owner? He looks a lot like that farmer who had a corn maze." And the dog's like, "Yeah, he used to have a corn maze." So I go back to the homeless guy and I say, "Is it true you used to have a corn maze?" "Yeah," he says. "I used to do things to you." I was like, "Oh, I thought you looked familiar." What a legend. Anyway, guys, that's how I made my lifelong friend. Hope you enjoyed the video. It only gets better from here. Make sure to like and subscribe for good content like this. See you, lads.